Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Friday, and all of our guests, including Thomas Drance, standing by to talk Canucks. Brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Get ready for winter with an unbeatable stay at the Bayside. This season, they're offering 25% off their best available rate. All winter long on weekday stays with a minimum 2-night booking. Whether it's a cozy coastal getaway or a serene retreat, don't miss this exclusive offer. Minimum is one of those words. When you say it, it sounds like you might have had a really good night.
Yes.
Call them directly at 250-248-8333 or visit Bayside Resort, Parksville.com to book your event today. A lot of people making the point in the Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox, pointing out that how could we forget this? But we talked about the accident. I'm not sure the timing here. The accident out your way. Maybe that had something to do with people showing up late.
That's true. Good point.
Thomas Drance joining us now in the wake of the 4-0 Canuck victory over the Panthers, a team he used to work for. From the Athletic Sportsnet 650. Thomas, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. Was fun to be at the rink last night, see some familiar faces, of course. And speaking of minimums, right, the Canucks there was no min Sasson for the Canucks. They turned the dial all the way to max Sasson last night in the first period.
Oh,
there you go.
And I tweeted about that after the first period. I thought he just really stood out. This is an obvious question, but I do that a lot, Thomas. Is he exceeding your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, he looks really comfortable. I thought there was a chance that he was a player because he's fast and he's smart. And I thought we saw that with the Canucks generating 2 rush goals directly off of his stick last night. His speed play, it was impactful. It made a difference in the game. And, that's what you need to do as you get more comfortable, as you become a fourth line, player, as you try to carve out a niche in the show for a player like Max Sasson playing just his 9th NHL game last night. You got to let the things you do well, which in his case, he's smart, he's fast, his skill level is there, right? He's not a guy with no skill, but he's also a guy with a high motor who can play with some grit. He won some races and he created some opportunities. And, I don't think they go into I know they don't go into the first intermission up 2-0 without what he was able to do against the grain against the Panthers. It was crucial in sort of deflating the air out of the game and helping the Canucks win convincingly over, probably the elite team in the league right now.
JT Miller's return last night, missed 10 games. I like the fact his minutes were contained to 14, didn't overplay him, which was great first game back. What did you think of Miller's return?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, the main thing, Rick, was the Canucks were able to hold serve against the top of the Panthers lineup, right? And that's how you have to do it against this Panthers team. With Gustav Forsling and Sasha Barkov on the ice at the same time, the Canucks didn't surrender a goal, obviously. They didn't score a goal either, but they played the Panthers to a draw at the top of the lineup, and that allowed, 2 fourth-line goals. And a goal scored by the Miller line following a huge hit by Mark Friedman, who was another sort of unsung hero in that game last night. But they were able to score against one of the Panthers' depth lines, right, and put the game away. So by the end of the night, you have this sort of dynamic where the Canucks convincingly won, or at least held Florida to a stalemate in the area of the game in which they usually dominate, right? I mean, Forsling and Barkov, that axis, what the Panthers are able to do to their opponents in their combined minutes, not unlike what the Canucks do to their opponents in Miller and Hughes' minutes, or the Avalanche do to their opponents with McKinnon and Makar on the ice at the same time. I mean, they don't win the Stanley Cup final without the fact that with Barkov and Forsling, who are hard matched against McDavid in all 4 games in Sunrise, the Oilers scored 1 goal, right? Like just to give you an example of just how good that duo is. The Canucks won that, or at least the Canucks didn't allow that dynamic to beat them last night, and it was crucial in them winning 4-0.
I don't know. We're running out of words to describe Kevin Lankinen. 14 wins.
Well, we're making them up now.
Well,
Rick.
we're making them up.
Blankinen, right?
Yeah,
we're making them up now.
Yep, another shutout last night. I don't know where the Canucks would be without this guy, Thomas. He has been absolutely a great find.
Yeah, he's been awesome. And there's an awful lot of questions that this poses, right? I mean, you'd think the Canucks probably have a rotation in mind, but we sometimes see teams deviate from their preferred rotations to reward a guy that has, a shutout performance. I think the Canucks need to resist that temptation, given that, they've got the Avalanche coming into town. Like right now, if you go 1-1, 1-1, right, then you'd have Demko play on Saturday against – who did they face on Saturday again? Sorry, I slipped my head, but it's not as strong an opponent. Boston. So Boston, they struggle to manufacture offense. It's not as strong an opponent as the one you face on Monday in Colorado, right? And then you could go back to Demko in Utah and give Lankin in Vegas. And to me, that feels like a perfect ramp up, given that Demko's played one game in 9 months, right? You get your feet wet with a solid performance against St. Louis. You see this offensively challenged Bruins team on Saturday. You face a Utah team that can absolutely fill the net. I mean, they're a dangerous opponent, but they're not exactly Vegas. That to me would be like perfect. That's a perfect way to handle Demko's first 10 days in active duty. Lots of space between the games, regular starts in a split with Lankinen. Meanwhile, Lankinen, the goalie who's in rhythm and playing at the absolute peak of his powers at the moment, would get Florida and then Colorado and then Vegas. So one thing I do hope is that the shutout doesn't sort of convince the team to deviate from a plan that feels, when you really look at the schedule and sort of piece it out, feels pretty perfectly set up for reintegrating Demko. But look, Lankinen's been awesome. We know that Jim Rutherford teams historically have not paid their backup goaltenders, but we are dealing with a pretty unprecedented situation here, given, the Demko's injury, how little we know about that injury, both short-term and long-term, in terms of its performance impact for a player. I mean, for me, Lankinen's a guy who, I do think this team should probably consider retaining, prioritizing. He's due for free agency. He's performed like an above-average NHL starter through the first 30-game segment of the year, basically. I mean, this guy's been a huge find, a season-saving find for the Canucks. In fact, he's been, this year's Pius Suter, right? Like, of all the players that the Canucks added, and Sherwood's been a standout, Danton Heinen, Vinny Desharnais. I really like Derek Forbert's game last night, but we haven't seen him very often. Of all the sort of depth guys that this team added, there's no question Lankinen has been their biggest hit of the offseason.
You have no idea how much I enjoyed you forgetting who the Canucks play on Saturday.
I don't know why I couldn't come up with it. All I knew was that I knew they have Colorado on Monday, because I'm always excited to watch McKinnon skate around the ice, like he's mad at the sheet. But I don't know why I spaced on Boston. It's
you know why, Tom?
Is Boston not a premium opponent anymore? What's wrong?
I think you're joining the old man club. Welcome.
Yeah. Man,
you got a long way to go. I'm just kidding.
I've been there for a while with my taste, though.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned Derek Forbort there, close to 20 minutes of ice time in his return. Maybe elaborate on that. What'd you think?
Well, I just thought the defense held up really well. And I wonder, actually, if the Canucks put some stuff on tape. Thought it was pretty interesting post-game. Paul Maurice talking about the team or talking about the game suggested that, the Canucks scored 3 rush goals. Those are off our sticks. That's on us. But went on to say, other than that, there wasn't much going on either way. He said, I thought they defended hard around their net, and the rest of it was watching paint dry, which I think is, look, we could go loaded with it and talk about the fact that, the Canucks haven't had a sellout since the second game of the regular season, or talk about the home record or the aesthetic quality of the hockey they're playing. But I actually took it as a compliment. I think it's a compliment to the way that the Canucks played defense. I even think the Canucks might have put some stuff on tape in terms of how to handle the stress hockey approach that the Panthers take both on the forecheck and in the neutral zone. That we might see teams copy a little bit. The Panthers put you under a ton of duress. They can make defenders, like really mobile defenders, look silly on most nights. And the Canucks went into that game without Erik Brannstrom in the lineup, without Filip Hronek in the lineup. That's 2 of their 3 most dynamic puck-moving defenders, and completely contained them. In fact, we're so far on top of the Panthers that they made the Panthers look slow. I thought Soucy was immense. I thought Forbort and Friedman were excellent. Actually, Forbort and Friedman almost reminded me a little bit of Do you remember in November and October of last year when this Canucks team really got on that like 10-1-2 streak that cemented them as sort of on their way to a dream campaign? It was Ian Cole and Mark Friedman as the second pair that sort of, a 20-game run from that duo that really sort of propelled the Canucks into mid-November, at the very apex of the league standings and really set them up for a strong run. I wonder if there might be a similar dynamic that Forbort and Friedman can find, because I thought that pair looked great. In fact, I thought that was Vancouver's most effective pair throughout the evening. We obviously saw what Friedman was able to do through a couple of big hits, got under Barkov and Sam Reinhart's skin, which is exactly what you want from your third pair defender. I thought it was a really strong identity performance from him. And, when you talk about getting Miller back and sort of the emotional lift of that, Friedman to me was one of the guys who sort of carried that energy, right? Rose to the occasion and made sure that energy was an edge for Vancouver in the game. So I just thought it was a remarkable night from the Canucks defense corps. I went into the game really expecting them to struggle with the Panthers' pressure, and far from it. They were sharp. They moved the puck well. They were on top of the Panthers all night.
Thomas, thanks for this. Appreciate it. Boston tomorrow. Colorado Monday.
Boston tomorrow. Check your schedule. Thanks, boys.
Okay.